Welcome to the Wandering Tangent Podcast. I'm BJ. With me is Jeff, and today we're talking about the 1954 classic creature feature, Them. Say that 10 times fast. Them.
Them.
Not to be confused with the 2006 film Them, which is apparently a French-Romanian horror film.
Okay, didn't know that existed.
So not that Them, or I think wasn't there like a recent movie called like They or something like that, or Us, or I don't know. And no, we're talking about
it can all get so confusing.
We're talking about the one with giant ants.
Yes. So BJ, what did you think of this movie from 1954, Them? What did you think of it?
This is unironically one of my favorite movies.
Unironically. Wow.
Which kind of shows, I guess, my taste in movies. Then again, I'm also the one who depends on which Godzilla movie I enjoy, ironically or unironically, but that's neither here nor there. But no, I enjoy this film quite a bit. We have now, between this and The Thing, there is only one movie we haven't watched yet that I would look forward to Halloween to catching on Turner Classic Movies, and that is The Haunting, which is more of a Halloween-y film, so we might hang on to that.
Yeah, I have not seen The Haunting. Interesting.
I was just going to say, but how about you? We know that this movie is right in my wheelhouse. What do you think about it? I mean, I guess I know since you're the one that suggested we watch this one, so...
Yes, so this movie really made me want to go hunt some ants. Every time, even no matter how scary they are, I just want to go out there in the desert and search for some ants. Take them on with a big flamethrower. That would be the ultimate hunting excursion. Go hunt some giant ants.
I was about to say, did you want to go hunt giant ants, or are you going to go hunt like regular size ants with your flamethrower?
Yeah. What are you doing out there?
Just burning ants.
Burning ants. No, giant ants. Big giant ants. That would be the best. And this is a good movie. I've seen it a couple of times. It's a favorite of yours, but it wasn't as familiar to me. Because I know it's a classic black and white movie where they fight giant ants. That is like the iconic film of the ages, it seems like humans versus the ants, one organized society against another. But it's good. I liked it, and watching it this time, I kind of know it mostly, but a lot of it I had forgotten. So it was fun to watch, and I recommend this as an excellent monster movie to see. Definitely.
Yeah, there are a great many mankind versus giant insect movies, but for my money, this is by far the best one.
Oh yeah, and the ants, the giant ants that they built, they look rather good. They're not so bad. At least from my point of view, especially for 1954, they're really excellent looking.
Which is kind of funny because when you go back and look at a lot of other giant monster movies from the era, they just kind of, I don't know what the technique is, they kind of superimpose film of like actual insects.
Yeah.
But just used as their giant bugs.
And it doesn't look as good. I actually like the giant ant puppets that they built.
Yeah, the puppets are great. The main giant bug movie I was thinking of in comparison to this is one called, I think it's The Beginning of the End. And it's like giant grasshoppers.
Oh yeah, I haven't seen that one either, but I have seen pieces of it.
It's not very good.
It has giant grasshoppers like climbing over buildings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing I remember most about it, is that when they have the giant grasshoppers are climb over this building, it's like a picture of the building they kind of put on the floor, and
oh really? It's not even like a model. It's like
no, it's not a model. It's like a picture of a building. But yeah,
it's very cost effective.
It is, but it doesn't look very good. And I suppose if you want to get real technical about it, the giant ants and them probably aren't very realistic, but they look good.
They look good.
They do their job.
They do their job, and yeah, they look good for 1954. If this movie was made in the 80s, I'd probably expect a little more, but I thought they were really good. And they also, just the shots they did with the ants, like how they introduced them, and well, a lot of it's good. It's good. Yeah.
Yeah, so something interesting to note about this movie is that it was originally intended to be filmed in 3D and color, but apparently Warner Brothers didn't believe in the film that much, so to save costs, they nixed the 3D and the color.
This seems like a movie that didn't have a huge budget. It wasn't necessarily cheaply made, but it didn't have a huge budget to it because it doesn't have a lot of characters that you'd expect it to have. But they seem to pull things off really well.
Yeah, I was thinking about this after I watched the movie last night. I was thinking maybe I think what makes them work more than, say, other movies such as the giant grasshopper one previously mentioned, is that since they're using the big ant puppets, they can't really go like, how do I phrase it? They can't really go like crazy with the scenes, right? Like at most there's like 3 or 4 ants in the scene.
Uh-huh.
And I think that limitation actually helped them out quite a bit because, they never go whole hog. The encounters with the ants are usually in close quarters and pretty intense as compared to, say, something like the giant grasshopper movie. They have like stock footage of like tanks and troops, firing out in distance, and then they pan over to like the live action grasshoppers like being animated, superimposed. I don't know what the term is, on like the background scene, and it just doesn't look as good.
Yeah, I agree.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, obviously, if they had a bigger budget, they could have made more ants, but still, I think having a actual analog there for the ants makes it work better than a lot of monster movies in the age does.
I agree.
Or in that era, I should say.
Yeah, and when they show like pieces of like ants destroyed or like pieces of their eggs and everything, it's all good looking sets. I thought it all looked good.
I did wonder how many ant puppets they burned down in making this movie.
Yeah. Somebody had to make all those and put every little hair and craft them all together, and then they would burn up in the end. It's all interesting.
Maybe the ones they made to be lit on fire weren't as detailed, since they were just going to be incinerated anyway.
Yeah.
I tried to do a little bit of research, but there's not a lot of background I could find on this movie.
All right, so should we introduce spoilers and talk about the in-depth nuances of the film Them?
Sure, let's do spoilers, but how do I phrase this as politely as possible? Considering the fact that you have been confused by the plots of Godzilla movies, I'm not sure if you're kidding about the in-depth plot of them or not.
In-depth plot. Yes, it was just words. It didn't mean anything.
You got confused about the plot of King Kong versus Godzilla, or Kong versus Godzilla.
I did. It was weird. It was like, okay, there's these berries on the island. They want the berries. Godzilla like gets all trippy on the berries. And then why does this news organization or this media organization that's also a pharmaceutical company, why do they want to go and get King Kong? What does that have to... They just want the berries, but they also want King Kong, and they also want him because of some sort of media plot. The whole thing's a little confusing. And there's a submarine that like runs into an iceberg that's glowing weirdly. Okay. Yes, it's not it's a plot that most people probably could just sit down and watch, but there were things in there where if you miss a line once in a while, and yeah, anyway. I wasn't confused after I watched it several times and to figure out the small, subtle things about the plot. But there were things that were just kind of thrown in, like the company. There's Japanese company who seems to be doing multiple things at the same time. But anyway,
I think you're the first person ever to accuse King Kong vs. Godzilla of having anything subtle about it.
anything subtle about it?
Anything subtle about it.
Well,
Anyway.
Yeah, anyway. So, anyway, that's definitely getting into spoilers. Let's talk about them. This giant ant battle movie.
I mean, outside of it being ants, is there really much to spoil?
Is there really much to spoil? There's people that probably haven't seen it. Probably lots of people. When was the first time you saw it?
Must have been on TV. Oh, I don't know. I can't remember. I was probably pretty young. By going to my Amazon account, I can see when I ordered the DVD.
I'm sure everyone is very interested in that. But when did he order the DVD? When? Okay, but you were a little kid when you watched this.
Yeah,
Was it scary when you watched it as a kid?
I don't recall being too scared by it, but, then again, it is the kind of movie that's right in my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And for anyone who is curious, that was a good order. Back in 2006, I ordered a sci-fi 3-pack DVD from Amazon, which was Them, Forbidden Planet, and The Thing from Another World.
Wow. What
a deal.
Yeah, quite a deal. Thing from Another World.
So we have talked about all three of those. How about that?
Yeah, we have. Okay. This is a really great title, but like Them. You can tell it's one of the early movies because it uses this very generic title. Anyway, so let's begin spoilers.
Okay.
First thing I noticed about this movie is that there is one of the first characters we meet is a policeman who somehow stays very important to the plot all through the movie, which I think is hilarious. It's a very classic monster movie type of trope from the 1950s where you have just a character and that character just gets used even though he's a policeman. His jurisdiction is just within the county or something that he's in. Yet he goes on to help the FBI in their investigation, to go to LA, to go down into the LA underground irrigation canals and to fight the ants up into the last battle. And I just think it's hilarious. And a lot of that is probably just because they don't want to have too many characters. They've already introduced this guy to the audience, so they don't need to have more and more people that the audience needs to get to know. And the audience don't think about these sort of things. Like, why would the police officer for the beginning stay in this entire story?
Well, to try to justify it plot-wise, for a good chunk of the movie, they are trying to keep the ants a secret.
So he already knows it, so they just use him because of that.
Yeah, he was there when they discovered the ants, He had the skill set they needed, he was a police officer, so he could investigate. At this point, I think, considering it was a 1954 movie, so take into account that a good chunk of fit men of that age would be veterans of World War II, so they knew he could fight. So why not, instead of bringing someone else in, why not take the guy who already knows what's going on along?
I guess so. I just don't see that ever happening in real life, including in 1954. But that's not a problem. It's actually fun to watch because that's kind of the monster movie type of angle where you're watching it and you kind of think of yourself as one of the characters in a way. And so, like, not, I don't know, kind of, like you have empathy towards the character. So that character goes through all of these things all the way up into the end. And the actor who plays him, he was a World War II veteran, and then obviously turned to Hollywood.
So the actor we were talking about is James Whitmore. James Whitmore Jr.
I want to say that he was in other war movies too. Like The Longest Day, I think he was in. But also he's in
looking at his filmography, he was in Tora 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 as Halsey.
Oh yeah. And that's a good movie. One of my favorites, yeah.
I don't think I've ever actually sat down and watched Tora 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 from end to end.
Oh, it's good. It's a good movie. It's a very nerdy movie. You have to be like a history nerd to like it. He was also the older he was the old man in Shawshank Redemption. He's the guy who has a little bird in his pocket inside his coat that he feeds.
I didn't even notice that. Yeah, he's Brooks.
He's Brooks, yes. It's yeah. Yep. So that was one thing, so he's a fun character. I liked him in this movie.
Yeah.
Thought he did well. He has kind of like a swagger about him. And he definitely just guts in and tries to get the job done, and he saves 2 children from the giant ants. It's definitely the heroic type. There's another... yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so just kind of, since you brought up the scene where he saves the kids from the ants, I know it's sort of a meme nowadays that, movie trailers these days spoil everything. It's always been like that, because my Blu-ray copy had a piece of trailer in it. They literally showed the scenes where he dies, and like the final scene in the movie where they're torching the queens in the nest, that's in the trailer. So like the actual final scene is in the trailer.
Yeah, they'll just show you everything.
The death of a major character is in the trailer. Apparently the trailer spoiling everything has been going on for decades.
Yeah. Oh. So, what would you prefer trailers to be more like? Just,
I mean,
show a couple of things that gives you the gist of the movie, but not give away any plot. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, it has to show some plot, because they have to show enough plot to like get the hook in, but like don't show like the ending of the movie.
Yeah. Or they shouldn't show anything that really makes the plot obvious. It's better.
Or like in this case, the death of a major character.
Yeah.
They literally show him getting chomped by one of the ants.
Which is doable. They don't have to show the best stuff. I was surprised that he died in the end. That I didn't remember that had happened, and then I was watching it, and I'm kind of under the mindset of course the hero wins, because of course they do. You don't kill off characters, they survive. But then suddenly he died, and I'm like, what?
What?
I guess somebody has to live, and I guess it's the other guy, that the FBI guy gets to live.
Yeah, the FBI agent played by James Arness, which, fun fact, James Arness was The Thing in The Thing from Another World.
Oh, he played the monster?
Yeah.
Wow, all right. Movies are all happily connected.
So, and since we're talking about cast, I did want to ask you.
Yeah.
Did you notice Leonard Nimoy's little bit part?
What? No. Okay. Where was Leonard Nimoy? Was he one of the soldiers?
No, you know the scene.
I totally missed him. Yeah, okay.
The scene, how to describe it? The scene where they're in like the intelligence office, and there's like the one guy who talks to the lady at the typewriter, talk about, I think this is the kind of thing the folks upstairs will want to see. That's Nimoy.
You're kidding.
A very young Nimoy.
I totally remember that line and remember seeing it and remember seeing him, but I didn't recognize him at all. Funny. Yep. Okay.
Well, I guess not that terribly young, but still, I guess it was like 11 years before Trek. Something like that.
Yeah, he had a He was in a bunch of stuff leading up to it. But he wasn't he wasn't a popular actor before then.
Yeah,
but
no,
he had done a couple of things.
Yeah, it was definitely a bit part, and from my reading, he was uncredited.
Yeah, it wasn't big enough a part to actually get in the credits. Yep.
Yeah, and then I guess another fun fact. So seen this I've seen this written a couple of places, but I don't know how true it is. But apparently Walt Disney viewed the film to see James Arness because he was thinking about casting James Arness to be Davy Crockett. But instead he saw the scene with the one pilot who was put in the insane asylum because he saw ants flying by and reported it.
Yeah.
Apparently the gentleman's name is Fess Parker, and Disney and Walt Disney was impressed by his performance, so he hired him as Davy Crockett.
Okay.
So apparently this movie made Fess Parker Davy Crockett, which I haven't seen in a really long time. So there you go.
Now, that scene with the pilot, that's a weird scene. Like, they go to visit this poor guy that's been locked up for seeing something during a flight that everyone thinks he's crazy after he reported what he saw. And they know what he saw, but they leave him in there. And they tell the doctor that he has to stay locked up. Otherwise, Washington will hold him responsible. Which I don't think Washington would have any legal abilities to hold him responsible for anything. I mean, they would have to get other people involved, and he would have to probably be removed to some other custody or something. I don't know. It seems all very sketchy. Obviously, it's just a monster movie, and you can tell that through this movie, they didn't want a lot of different characters. They keep the number of people involved with this at a minimum, which is probably good for budget, but it also helps the audience because now they don't have to worry about so many people to keep track of. But yeah, that was kind of silly. It's like,
I mean,
he's like, you're going to help me out, guys, right? Yeah, don't keep me in here. And they just are like, sure we are. And they walk out. You better keep him locked up.
Well, like, plot-wise, it makes sense because, they're trying to keep the ants under wraps so it doesn't cause, like, a global panic. But, like, at the same time, if they did the same... In this scene, it was kind of played off as a laugh, haha, keep him locked up, we'll call and tell you when he's sane.
Is it played off as a laugh? Or
that's kind of the...
I don't know if it's so much a laugh. It was
played off more as a laugh than it would say in more modern media when it would be like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it was definitely in service of the plot, and
yeah.
I don't know if it was played like straight up as a joke, but it was definitely more lighthearted than it would be in, say, if a movie was made nowadays.
Yeah.
With that same joke.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of which, speaking of more modern movies, something I discovered last night when I was researching. It's listed as in development, so who knows what's actually going to happen, but they're apparently going to remake this movie.
Of course they would.
Which I'm not terribly excited about.
Everything goes perfectly well when you remake a movie, BJ.
It's amazing.
Nothing can go wrong. They already have a script, and it's already a popular film-ish. Popular-ish. I mean, what could go wrong?
I was so tempted right there to try to convince you that it was going to be directed by J.J. Abrams, but it's not. I wanted to say it just so I could see what your reaction would be, but no, I'm not going to be that mean. I should have done it. In hindsight, I should have done it.
That's what they'll do.
Hilarious.
They'll be like, they'll remake it, and J.J. Abrams will direct it, and there'll be a twist. Like, it turns out the ants are good, and that they're there to, like, I don't know.
The ants can teleport.
Ants can teleport. Somehow they can teleport far away. And they don't need to fly anywhere anymore.
I mean, in this movie, the ants do kind of teleport because, I mean, it's a good scene, or it's a good little clip where like the ants attack the crew on that one ship, and they go and try to describe how, oh, the ants could have snuck on board. I'm like, oh,
yeah,
like,
that didn't make any sense.
It's like
the
I get
ant
what,
sneaks on board.
it's like I get what you're getting at, but how does a colony of 8-foot long ants just kind of
They left the window
on
open.
a ship?
And of all the places for it to go, a ship at sea. That's
Well,
weird. I guess they were flying over the ocean, and they thought, where do we land? Our instincts are all messed up because we're way bigger than what we've actually designed to be. Was it at dock? No, it was out at sea, right? This ship that they landed on?
They theorized that the ship was docked when the ants went in.
Oh, well.
They had a whole scene about this, Jeff. Come on.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, the ship was docked somewhere in Mexico. The crew had shore leave, so there's only a skeleton crew on board to watch, and so that's how they... And they left the hold
Makes
open.
even less sense.
They left the hold open the whole time, so they figured the ants snuck in under cover of night, because they do say that the ants are mostly nocturnal. They only come out at night, mostly.
Mostly.
It's another bug hunt.
Yeah. So they snuck aboard this boat. Then they were able to nest and reproduce and have a lot more ants. And then the ship went out to sea, and suddenly they have this huge battle aboard the ship between the ants and the sailors.
But like I said, it's sounded like a 10-second scene, but it was a pretty fun scene. You know, ants break through the window to chomp the guy at the radio. Maybe not a lot of sense plot-wise, but good enough. They monster movie logic it out.
Yeah, monster movie logic. Under monster movie logic, it works fine. I like when they introduce the ants. The first time you see an ant, you see all the wreckage and carnage and all this stuff, and everybody is wondering what's going on. And they have a theory that it's the ant, that they're giant ants, which is just a theory. And then the girl is investigating something, and the ant just comes up over this mound of dirt above her. It's a good scene.
Yeah, they have the cop and they have the FBI agent, and I guess the FBI agent sends... So after like the first attack, they like take a cast of a footprint, and because it's evidence, but they don't know what it is. So the FBI agent sends a copy of it off to FBI headquarters, and FBI headquarters sends off their whatever, and so a couple of scientists show up, and the scientists are being very coy about it, because they keep saying, oh, well, this fits the theory, and the cop and the FBI agent are like, what theory, you maniacs? Why can't
we can't tell you.
We can't tell you because you're going to think we're absolutely bananas. And then until there's actually giant ants.
That's kind of the mentality in this movie, because the pilot, everyone thinks the pilot is crazy. So they lock him up when he says he saw flying saucers, which turned out to be the giant ants flying. He just calls them flying saucers because he doesn't know what else to describe them as. And then the scientists are worried that if they come up with this theory and make it public, at least to the other members of their group, that they'll be laughed at or scorned. There's this idea that people are not going to believe you, that it's too ridiculous, and so they're careful to share things. And that's interesting. Do you think that if, this is a hypothetical, but do you think that if somebody saw giant ants, that they would at all be worried that people would think that they're crazy and not believe them and lock them up in today's time? Do you think that would ever be an issue?
I don't think they would be locked up, but in today's time, the burden of proof is very high, since, everyone has a cell phone camera, and everyone knows someone who could slap together a cheap-looking animation like, oh, look, giant ants, oh boy.
Yeah, so they wouldn't be believed. People wouldn't believe them until there was evidence, of course, but Yeah, but they wouldn't like take them and say, "Well, you got to be in this asylum now. You
Uh,
saw a saucer, you saw a giant ant. No, no, no. You got to be locked
well,
up."
I think the reason why they locked up the pilot is that during that conversation, the pilot says that after he saw the giant ants, that apparently that uh, that he does make he cracked up a little bit, and so he landed in the first place he could see was a street, and I think he said he ended up on someone's front porch. So I think that's why they have
He
him
crashed
locked
his
up.
plane, and then
Yeah, I
he
think
was hysterical when they found him. So they
so. Yeah, I think
decided,
that's why they have him in the mental institution. It's because he landed his plane, landed his plane on like a road, and was ranting about giant ants. So that makes a little more sense, I think, than just saying, "Oh well, he said he saw giant ants. Put him in a lock him up."
Hmm.
Apparently, you didn't
okay,
catch all the deep idiosyncrasies of them,
yeah, I guess not.
which cracks me up because you're the one that like digs into these deep meanings writing all these movies, but you can't pay attention to the plot of a giant monster movie.
Well, I mean, I saw the big creatures and the puppets, and the
Everything is
fact they
very
used flamethrowers on them. That's a definitely a good move. Flamethrowers, and through this whole movie, I kept thinking about the video game Red Alert that we used to play long ago.
I
Because when
thought
you
you were going to
beat
bring
the
this up.
game, of course I'd bring this up. Yeah, and when you beat the game, I think it's Red Alert Retaliation. It's about 25 years old now.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, I don't like saying that either. But in the game, you beat the game, and they give you bonus levels where you fight giant ants, and the ants breathe fire. Um, yeah, so you have to like fight them off. It's fun. It's just a funny thing, and they even do a little video intro where they have a general guy who's all surprised by this. Well, we won the game. Everything's good. Oh wait, giant ants are attacking. Now we have to deal with this. They make it very comical. It's good.
can't remember. Did you ever beat those levels legit, or did we always use cheat codes on them?
I don't really remember the cheat codes. I think we beat them legitimately. I think we did. They're only 2 levels from what I remember. But it's fun. I think more video games about fighting giant ants would be fun. It's a
Have,
fun genre.
have you heard about Earth Defense Force?
No. Well, what is that? What is that?
Well, it it's basically that it's it's not a very high budget game, which is probably why you haven't heard about it, but there's like 4 or 5 entries in the series. I've only played one or one of the titles for a little bit, but yeah, it's fighting giant bugs.
Excellent. Fighting giant bugs.
Fighting giant bugs. Conversation successfully derailed. What were we talking about?
We were talking about fighting giant bugs and how we want to. Or at least in a video game. I don't know, if you saw a dark hole like that, and there were giant ants that would just like destroy anyone that they came across. I mean, it would take a lot of guts to go into that hole. And I think the movie does a good job where they ask the scientist, like, how do we know that the ants are dead in there? And he's like, oh, no, we go in and find out.
Let's throw a few more cyanide bombs in this nest.
Yeah. It's a good way to build suspense. You get the audience ready for the idea that they have to go and do something dangerous.
Yeah, and like I said before, the fact that they're usually find ants inside the confines of a nest, that also helps to limit how many ants they can fight at a time, which means that limits how many ants they have to show at a time. Which
Yeah.
makes the encounters more interesting because it makes each individual ant more of a threat.
Mm-hmm.
As compared to just dumping a jar full of giant grasshoppers onto a green screen. I'm gonna make fun of the beginning of the end this whole time.
The beginning of the end.
I think, though, truth be told, I'm gonna look this up real quick, because I want to say the only version I saw of that movie was the Mystery Science Theater. Yeah, beginning of the end got the Mystery Science Theater treatment. So that's probably why I watched it. Shows just how quality that film was. The fact that it got an MST3K episode.
It's definitely, yeah.
Now
I haven't seen it. I've only seen pieces of it, but that we do need to probably watch that one sometime. Anyway, what else? What is there to really talk about this movie?
I don't know. It's pretty direct and to the point.
It is, and I really love movies that build up to in a mystery. They don't just like hand everything to you. They give you clues one by one to try to lead you into it. And if you didn't know that this movie was about giant ants or anything, the beginning of this movie becomes a lot more interesting and suspenseful.
Yeah, I did write down my notes that the beginning of the movie did have some good environmental storytelling, because like they find a little girl wandering in the desert, and when they go check out the trailer her family got attacked in, the cop guy, he looks in the cupboard underneath the bed, and he finds like a piece of cloth in the top of a doll's head, and then he goes back and he compares the two against the doll the little girl's holding in her robe, and they don't spell out, oh, this little girl was hiding underneath this cupboard. They just kind of let the evidence speak for herself. It's like, oh, yep, that's a piece of the doll she has, and that's a piece of cloth from her robe.
Yeah, so she was definitely there. That's where she came from.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just build on the evidence. I love that. And with the scene where she's laying down, they have her in the ambulance, and there's this strange sound, and the grown-ups are all looking around, just trying to listen to this weird sound. They don't know what it is, and they have the girl just like sit up, and she's just frozen, terrified. She knows what that sound is, and that whole scene was really good. I thought that was great. It was nice and suspenseful. Not so much that it scared me, because this movie wasn't scary enough for me, but it was just well done scene. I really appreciated it.
Yeah, it has a good build up. Obviously that kind of falls by the wayside once the mystery of it's giant ants is revealed, because how mystery can you be when it's giant ants, I guess.
Yeah. ...
Dot dot dot. Aim for the antennae.
Aim for the antennae. Aim for the antennae. Aim for the other antennae. What do you think of the scientist? There's two scientists, but the father. What do you think of him?
I think it was a good character.
Yeah, definitely. Very eccentric.
Edmund Gwen, who probably most famously, let me verify this before I say it. I believe he was the gentleman who played Santa Claus in Miracle on 34th Street.
See, I tried to verify that, but I couldn't. We might need to double check that.
According to Wikipedia, it's the same guy, so take that as you will.
Okay. I looked it up and I couldn't verify it, but...
So pretty much if there's a eccentric old guy in a 1940s or 50s movie, it was probably this dude.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, that looks like him. Chris Kringle, Edmund Gwen, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so, yeah, it's the same guy.
Mm-hmm.
I like the girl in it, too. She knows how to stand up for herself when they're like, hey, you can't go in here. And she goes, no, you actually need a scientist on this, so I need to go in to verify things in the nest. So, yeah.
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah, trying to think of what other comparable movies we have seen that have a like character. I guess we're starting to dance on thin ice here. For the time, she was a strong female character, shall we say? She was never the damsel in distress, except for the first time we see the ants, because she kind of gets away from the group because the guys stop to talk about something, and she just keeps going. That was pretty much the only time she had to be saved. And then after that,
yeah.
And then after that, like you said, she doesn't take no guff.
No, she doesn't. She's a doctor too.
Yeah.
Very intelligent, and yeah. And it's the FBI guy who says a lot of like silly things. Never mind. I don't remember his line. I remember him saying a lot of things, and I'm like, you're not as smart based on what he's saying.
He never really. I don't think he insults her intelligence. It's more of the usual. It's too dangerous for a woman to go, but she's like, screw you. You need a scientist. My dad's too old.
Yeah. Well, I think that with the it's like the FBI guy is kind of almost like the viewpoint of the audience. The two scientists are the experts, but he questions things and doesn't quite understand, and they explain things to him, kind of like how the audience needs things explained. And I really like the ant presentation they do in the film. They talk about details about the ants, which really helps, I think, to build up the mystique around ants.
And I love a good briefing scene in old monster movies.
Yes, indeed. A good briefing. There's often a briefing scene. Godzilla had a briefing scene that was really good. And yeah, excellent stuff.
So it's kind of weird because we both like the movie, but there's no like deeper plot or anything. So there's not really a lot of us to talk about.
No, there really isn't.
Talk about it for. This might be a good thing considering the last 3 episodes we did.
I know we tend to talk way too much. It's the honest truth. So, we can probably cut this. Go ahead.
So tell me, Jeff, what's your fan edit for this movie?
My fan edit?
What would you fix?
I wouldn't really fix this movie, but the movie I would love to be made from this is a huge epic film where you have thousands of ants and you have like a whole army division with tanks and with mines and all sorts of. They find the nest and they try to contain it by surrounding it with this perimeter. And so the ants try to get out, and they have waves and waves of ants that attack, and they have to somehow survive with like flamethrowers and stuff. And then the ants come in and they're flying around, and then you have all these like jet fighters to come in and try to intercept them, and then they spit like poison stuff. I don't know. A huge epic battle over the ants.
For someone who spent a fair amount of time railing on computer graphics and all that, you are describing a rather effects-heavy movie.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. And I would want a lot of the close-ups of the ants to not be computer-generated. I want them to be some sort of animatronic thing for the closest shots. For far-away shots, they can be, whatever.
Okay, I didn't actually expect to kick you off into a fan edit, so...
you dared.
It was a callback.
To ask. But I actually...
This be a callback.
This movie it's fun, and I almost like, when I watch it, I feel like this is what monster movies from the 50s are like. This is with the mystery, with the action, with the all of the different things together, and the creatures, and the meetings with experts, all worried about the situation. It's good. And so from this 1950s decade that had lots of great monster movies, this is definitely a good pick from them.
Yeah.
From that.
It is very different from how it would play out today, because I wrote down in my notes that I thought it was interesting that it was the government that was all like, we need to tell everyone, you need to warn people, but it was the scientists like, no, we have to keep it secret. I'm like, nowadays it'd be like, nowadays it would be the other way around, because people don't trust the government, but science good.
Yeah, the whole idea of keeping the ants a secret to avoid panic. It's weird that that's coming from the scientists and the policemen, and the government are just unsure. So they send like one general out there who flies a plane.
He flies his own helicopter.
Has no staff with him. Shoots his, helps in the bazooka team. It's just funny, because really, they would have 100 people there. Even if they were keeping it super secret, there would be 100 extras around that nest. And still, there would be personnel there.
Well, again, like I said before, one of the things I think makes this movie work is that they do go small scale, comparatively, I should say.
They do.
There's no big scene of a street crammed with people fleeing in terror from the monster in the background or anything like that.
Yeah, they're missing that cliche where there's a crowd of people and they're all running and they have to look over their shoulder as they're running. Yeah, that movie doesn't have this, but it's just funny. It's just there's so few people involved with this, and it's a epic world challenge of sorts. And there's like 5 people that are handling it.
Well, I guess maybe that's what makes the movie work, is that it's a small group of people trying to keep it from becoming this world-ending apocalypse, as compared to what happens in a lot of these other movies that, oh no, the apocalypse is already here, ah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's why it works.
It does work. It works as a fun monster movie that I think I definitely recommend, which I've already said, but
yes.
Yeah. I want to show it to my kids, but I don't want to tell them what it is. I'll just show it to them at bedtime, let them have a few nightmares. Like,
I'm sure Life would love that.
If she finds out. Okay, that's a joke.
That's a joke.
That's called a joke.
It's a joke.
Called a joke.
He's not actually going to try to traumatize your kids. Not that I think she listens to this, does she?
Oh, they say they would, and then they don't. So we're safe. Completely safe.
I guess we'll find out, huh?
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Anything else to say about it?
No, I think I'm good. This is a good movie.
This is a good movie.
Go watch it.
Go watch it. I know we didn't talk about it very much, but, well, sometimes you don't have to.
Yeah, I don't think we have to.
Give everyone a nice, what's the word I'm looking for? A nice palate cleanser after we talked about Star Wars for ad nauseum for the past month and a half.
Yeah, we talked about Star Wars a lot. And we argued about it a lot. We debated about it. And you became frustrated, which is understandable. Because there's certain topics I couldn't stop talking about. Anyway, but it's all behind us now.
It's all behind us now.
Yeah,
we're never going to talk about Star Wars again.
No, never.
Never. Join us next week as we discuss Rogue One. No.
Oh my goodness. I don't think you've even seen Rogue One.
I've not seen Rogue One, but I've heard mostly good things about it.
Yeah, it's mostly good. That's a good explanation for it. All right, so do we know what we're gonna watch next?
Yeah. I'm still thinking about it.
Oh, well, good. We'll think
about bounce a couple ideas off you, but we don't have to do that on screen.
Yeah, that's all good.
On tape.
I say we're good. Let's go ahead and close it up.
Closing it up. Thank you for listening to Washington Tangent. What? Washington will hold us responsible for this.
Washington will hold you responsible for this podcast, BJ. They will listen to this podcast.
No, that's a
Watch
different
the
film.
skies.
That's a different film. So, too late. We're about to tangent again. So, though I guess this does kind of have the classic 1950s monster movie ending of kind of not really a downer ending, but it does have a watch the skies kind of ending.
Some sort of warning. Yeah, and it's a warning about the new things that will come about because we're entering an atomic world now.
The atomic age. Which was a lot less giant monsters and a lot more Cold War.
Yep.
Anyway, on that happy-go-lucky note,
yep.
I'm BJ. With me was Jeff. Thank you for listening to the Wandering Tangent podcast, and we will see you next time for something.
Shoot the antennae!
Aim for the antennae!